Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to see about Java typecasting. So, what is mean by Java typecasting? So, before going to that, right? Do you guys remember in last video we have seen different types of data, different data types available in Java, right? There I have mentioned that you cannot change the data type of variable from one type to another in the program. Like for example, you are declaring a variable, right? Like a with int data type, but later in the program, if you try to assign a value other than int, for example, if you are assigning a value or you are setting a value as float, right, to that int variable, you will get an error because that variable a, right, as declared with int data type. So the value can hold only the int value. But if you are trying to assign a different value, like a float value, the IntelliJ, or you will get an error saying that the record type is int, but you are trying to assign a value float. But there is a process you can do that. That the process we call it as Java typecasting, so that you can assign a different data type to that int variable. So Java typecasting means converting one data type into another data type. For example, tuning an int into a double, or double into a int. You may be still not clear what I have explained now, right? Maybe I will explain you with some example as well. Let's go into that video now. So, as I mentioned, right, the Java typecasting. So there are two types of typecasting available in Java. One is widening casting. The spelling is Widening. Widening casting. We also call it as automatic. So, do you guys remember that in the last video, right? I mentioned that byte, short, int, long, float, double, boolean, and char. So these many data types available in Java, right? So widening casting means converting a small type to a larger size. Like maybe I'll type it, converting a smaller type to a larger type size. What I meaning is, so see, do you hear byte, right? Byte can hold a value from minus 128 to plus 127. Short, right? If you want to store more than this value, you can go for short data type. So meaning that you can move byte to short. You can understand, right? So byte can hold smaller value 128 to 127. Even short also can hold this value, right? So you can move this to this, so it will work like byte to short. So you can move byte value into short, so that will work. That we call it as widening casting or automatic, because we don't need to do anything by simply moving this value byte value to short value, so it will accept because minus 21 minus 128 to 127 can hold short type as well. So we can directly move this to that, that is byte to short. Similarly, int, right, short can also be moved into int because int is bigger than short. Likewise, int value can be moved to long. Similarly, long value can move to float. Similarly, float value can move to double. So it is because double is greater than float, float is greater than long, long is greater than int is greater than short, short is greater than byte. So the lower data type, right? This is the lower data type, right? Then this one. So The lower data type is transformed into higher one by a process called widening casting. That is the definition for widening casting. Also, we call it as implicit casting. Implicit or automatic, like there are different name we can tell. So I'll mention that as well. Can also call it as implicit casting. So the meaning is lower data type, right? The lower data type is transformed into higher one by a process known as widening casting or implicit casting. Yeah. So since there is no chance of data loss because this is smaller value, right? You can directly smaller value move into bigger one. So there is no chance of data loss. That is called widening casting. So this is the order. So byte can be moved to short, short can be moved to int, and int can be moved to long, long can be moved to float, that float can be moved to double. For example, if you are declaring int, right? So you are declaring int a of 10, then you are declaring long, right? Long, like you can like b is a variable name, and you are assigning value of a. So that will work. It is because see the order here in this order int is right. The int, sorry, the long, right? The long comes after int. So which means the int is smaller value. So the smaller value can be moved to longer value. That is the type, data type. That is called widening casting, right? So this smaller value int, right, can be moved to assign to longer type b variable. So now the value, right, the 10 will be assigned to b as well. That is called widening casting. Let me run with some example, right, so that you will be more clear. Maybe I will create one class file, right? With let me create one new Java class. This is type casting, right? So type Java type casting. So you already know, right? What is the shortcut to create a main method? tsvm. Type psvm. Then if you are not, if you are, this is the first time you are seeing this, just type psvm and tab. So you'll get the main method. So we are going to see about first widening casting, right? Maybe I will add a command widening casting, also known as, also call it as implicit casting. So let me declare a variable int of a and assigning value 10. Now I am declaring long data type, variable name is b, and assigning value a. See, we are assigning int data type into long. Similarly, I am going to create another double c, variable name is c, and assigning value a again. So because int into double. So why it is? Because do you remember this is the order, right? So the int can be assigned to long, also to double. Let's see the output, what we are getting in B and C, so that you will be getting what I'm saying. So here, let's display the B first. Similarly, why I'm getting error here, double quotes, just to be in double quotes. Let's add one more sysort for C as well, C variable. So Let's replace this with C, then replace with this C. Let's run this and see the output for B and C, what we are getting. I need to change this right to current file. We run this. It is executing now. So we got the output now. Let's verify it. So for B, we got 10. So which is expected, right? So we are assigning 10 to long variable. We have got B as 10. But here double, right? We are assigning 10 to C, right? See, we got 10.0. You may be thinking, right? For B, we got 10, but for C, we got 10.0. It is because C is, do you remember? C is a double data type. So double is for fractional number. So that's the reason we got with decimal value. Remember, I'll go to the notes again. In last video, I have mentioned, right? The first four type is for whole number, byte, short, int, and long. The next two data types for fractional number, that is decimal number. So we are moving int type to double, right? That's why it's by default it is adding 0.0. So that's the meaning of double. Double can hold fractional value. Even though we are assigning 10, it will add it will show the, even though if we add 0.0, right? There is no meaning, right? Anyhow, it is 10. As mathematically, it is 10. It's the value. So now you hope you guys clear, right? What I'm saying. So this is widening casting. The lower data type, right? The lower data type is transformed into a higher one, which is called widening casting. So there are two things you need to remember, which is the target type, right? The target type means this one, the target type should be larger than the source type. So the C data type, right, should be larger than, that is C is where C, right? The C is double, which is greater than int. So that thing you need to remember. The second point is both data type must be compatible with each other. So you need to remember these 2 points, right? For widening casting. Hope you guys clear, right? After seeing this example now, what I'm trying to explain to you. So this is the widening casting. Now we are going to see about second type, which is explicit casting or narrow type casting. Let me type it. Narrow type casting. Also we call it as explicit casting. So which is basically this narrow type casting is opposite to widening casting. Here we are moving smaller, right? Smaller to bigger, the smaller data type to larger one, right? But narrow casting is the process of downsizing a bigger data type into a smaller one. Clearly understand the word. Widening casting means smaller data type to larger data type. But narrow type casting means larger data type to smaller one. So the process of downsizing a bigger data type into a smaller one is called narrow typing, narrow type casting or explicit casting. As I mentioned, right, the narrow type casting is just opposite to widening casting, which means, so here it will come from reverse. So first double will be moved to float, move to long, then long can be moved to int value can be moved to short, then short data type can be moved to byte. But here you should remember one point is there may be a data loss might happen due to lower data type because double hold larger value than float, right? when you try to move larger value to smaller value, there may be a data loss might happen. So that is the reason it is not automatic. So here I mentioned automatic, right? Which means the smaller value can directly move to larger data type. So there won't be any issue. So it will be automatically done. But in this case, you cannot, you are moving larger value to smaller value. So there may be a chances that data loss may happen because if you are moving larger value to smaller, right? So there may be a chance of data loss. The value can be reduced, right? So that's why it's required manual intervention. So manually we have to mention that this value has to be moved to this value, that is double into float. So you should be more careful while converting from bigger, larger data type to smaller data type because there is a chances of data loss, right? So that's why I'm telling you multiple times. So you should be very careful while converting from larger data type to smaller data type. So maybe we'll see with some example, right? So for example, you are declaring in, sorry, you can declare with some float, right? You are converting into int. For example, you are declaring float, right? float, float the variable a and assigning value something 5.5 f. So the value should always end up with f, right, for float. And assigning this to, as we assign, right, in widening casting, we directly assign the value, right? Like b equal to a. So if you assign like that, let's see, I will show you. So we are converting into int. So we are declaring int of b variable and assigning value a. So the syntax is almost looks same, right? But we cannot do like this. So here I am said, do you remember it is automatic. So automatically the value will be converted and restored into B. But here we are converting bigger data type, right? Larger data type into smaller. So we manually have to mention that this is the syntax to tell that this has to be converted to int and save into B. So this is the syntax. The target data type must be mentioned here. Maybe I will show you some examples so that you will be getting you will be clear what I'm saying. So now let's see narrow casting or explicit casting. So I'm declaring float, right? Float of a and assigning value 5 of 5 f. Now I am going to declare int variable b. So we already declare a b, right? I'll go with I here. So in float I variable and assign the value 5.5 f. Maybe I will 5.55 float. Then b, right? B also used already. So I'll go with I j. Int of j variable and assigning value I. See, I am getting error. That's what I mentioned before. So you cannot directly assign different higher data type to smaller data type. Here we have to explicitly mention that this value I value has to be converted into int and store into j. So this is called narrow casting. So you have to mention the target variable data type. So here the target variable j as int type, right? So we have to mention int. Let's display this and see the output. Int of j will run and see the output now. See, the float as I of 5.55, but the sysouts we got j equal to 5 only. This because int is a integer. It can store only whole number, right? So that's why it stored only the whole number 5, and data loss is happened here, and the decimal value is removed. So that's why it is explicitly. If you are sure that you need only the whole number, in that case only we have to use narrow casting. So that's why the narrow casting as need some. It is not happening automatically. We have the program has to decide to convert to different data type. So maybe we will see. I will show you another example. Since this float value will be converted to byte, byte of k variable name and assign value I. See, I is k record byte, but we are assigned a float value. So we have to explicitly mention that I has to be converted into byte to store into target variable k. So now let's see another sysout for k, and we will see the output. So let me run this. K, we got k as 5. K is also is a data type for a whole number. So it shaved only the 5 and left the decimal value. So hope you guys clear now, right? What is Java typecasting? So there are two types: widening casting and narrow casting. In widening casting, you can convert smaller type to larger data type. But for explicit casting, you can convert larger data type to smaller data type. So hope you guys clear, right? What is mean by Java type casting and its type. So as usual, I'll be asking few questions to test your understanding. So there are three questions I have listed here. So the first one is, what type of casting is referred as short to int conversion? The second question is, what type of casting is referred as double to byte conversion? So hope you guys remember it, right? There are two types of conversion we have seen, right? So the first question is short to int conversion. Which type of casting we call it as short to int conversion? The second one is, which type of casting is referred as double to byte conversion? The last third question is, what type of casting may occur data loss? So please answer for these three questions in comment section. So if it is wrong, I will correct you in. Thanks for watching this video. Have a good day.